for masters lifters who undergo injury, short injury, or even a brief period of illness where you might miss a week of training, what do you recommend for their work sets and getting back into the program?
You're talking about a week of training.
A week of training or 3 days due to
Okay.
illness, vacation.
Go ahead. Good question. All right. Chris?
Well, like many things in training, I would say it depends on the level of advancement of the trainee, but a week isn't too much. I'd say, if anything, it depends on the severity, I guess, of the illness. If you're talking about a battle with the flu that wiped you out and it's going to take a few days to recover, then you might need to offset a few pounds. But a week isn't too long. We start getting 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then we're talking about dropping some weight off the bar. But in most cases, it's not going to be much of a difference.
No, I agree. If you're in linear progression as a master and you miss a few days and you come back and you feel good, I would probably have you lift the same weight that you lifted last time, and then I'd start adding weight to the bar again. I probably wouldn't advance you. I would like to avoid taking weight off your bar if possible, but if you're still feeling a little peaked, I may take a little bit of weight off your bar, then you might have to catch up to yourself a bit. If you're in an intermediate program, like say you're in heavy, light, medium, and you miss 3 or 4 sessions, right? And you did your heavy day, and then you missed a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. You come back, I might just have you do your medium day. I might just have you skip your light day and do your medium day if you feel really good. If you don't feel good, I might have you do your light day and then your medium day, right? Or I might just have you restart the whole cycle. So a lot of it depends on you, how you feel, where you were at, my previous experience with you as a lifter. So it's like all things, there's no one-size-fits-all answer, right? You're going to use your judgment, you're going to use your experience with yourself or with your lifter, and whether you're an intermediate or a novice lifter, what kind of program you're in. There's a lot of things that play into that. But I think the real take-home message is that, you can come back and pick your training up again, and you'll be back where you started soon. So, last week, I had a tooth abscess, which sucked mightily, and so I put myself on some clindamycin. I went to the dentist, and it got all taken care of, right? And so I came back, and I was going to do. I'm on a 4-day split, so I came back and I was going to do my heavy press light bench day, right? And the most I was able to get up on my press was like 20 pounds less than what my working weight was supposed to be, right? And fortunately, the bench was pretty light. It was just basically volume work, but I was weak. I was weak as a kitten. I thought, holy shit, because I ended up losing 2 or 3 sessions, and I still didn't feel quite right. So yesterday was heavy bench light press day, but instead of doing light presses, I tried to do the presses that I missed on Monday, and they went right up, right? So you can catch up with yourself pretty quick. So the take-home message is, as soon as you feel well enough, don't be an idiot, get back in and start training again, and you'll catch up to yourself presently, right? You'll bounce back, right? So, don't use it as an excuse to take time off. When you recuperate, recover, do what you need to do, but as soon as you feel well enough, get back in the gym. And don't be surprised if you're a little weak. If you have to take some weight off the bar, then you have to take some weight off the bar. And then you'll be back. You'll be back before you know it, right? You'll lose a little bit of strength after an illness, but you'll get it back. Next question, Errol.
All right, thanks guys. Great clinic today. My question is around balancing out between the squat and the bench, and the press and the deadlift. If you don't have the squat quite dialed in yet, and my deadlift feels a lot stronger, does it ever make sense to maybe back off on those other, to the bench and the deadlift in order to make sure you're recouping enough to get the squat stronger?
My opinion is no. I would not do that, right? So the reason your squat is not stronger is because the squat is in many respects the most technically demanding exercise The press gives it a run for its money, right? But the press doesn't have the recovery requirements of the squat. You don't move as much weight as you do with the squat. So let's say that your deadlift, your bench, and your press are way ahead of what like you're supposed to be, right? Compared to your squat. Well, don't worry about that. If your squat and your press and your bench are still getting stronger, why in the world would you put them in a holding pattern just so like you can like catch your squat up to it? Your squat will catch up. If you're still getting stronger on the other 3 exercises, but you're having technical issues with the squat, or maybe you have an injury with the squat or something. Like if I had a squat injury, I do have a squat injury. I have a calcific tendonitis of my right quadriceps tendon. So I've had to take weight off my bar. I'm getting rehab. By the way, just a shout out. Will Morris is a fucking genius.
He's a sharp guy.
Will Morris is a fucking genius. He is rehabbing my quadriceps tendon. He's one of our coaches, and he's a doctor of physical therapy, and he's got me back to where I can lift without being in agony on the squat. But so my squat, I've had to take some weight off my bar, and I'm not moving the volumes or the intensities that I was moving 3, 4, 6 months ago, right? You think for a minute I'm backing off on my press, deadlift, and bench? No way, right? I'm going to keep driving those up, and my squat will catch up eventually. So my answer to that is no.
No, it's exactly what I would say. But you got to get your squat going. You got to keep driving your squat up. But yeah, no, it's at a certain phase of lifting, if you're beyond the novice phase and you've established a baseline of strength, you may prioritize a lift if you become a competitive lifter geared up singlet. But training for general strength, it all will balance itself out as you put your time into the training and keep working your squat.
It's a long-term project.
Yep.
It all evens out.
Yep. Good question.
Tony?
Thanks, guys. I'm going to ask the token question about low back pain. So, Chris, I heard you mention that you dealt with some stuff in the past. I was wondering if you could extrapolate on that, your process of overcoming that, and if you do if you are recovered now, and if you do anything to help maintain that so you don't slip back into injury.
Okay, it's a good question. Yeah, I think. You're never, when you start dealing with back issues, they're gonna be reoccurring. It's pretty common of all individuals. There's gonna be ebbs and flows to it and ups and downs. And I'm at a stage now where I try to keep control of as many variables as I can, that I kind of know different things that will act up. In context of training, the biggest thing that I have ever done for my own issues have been getting good technique and learning how to train. And then getting to a point where my ego is kept in check, and I look at training as something, as a tool to maintain a level of strength, not something to fulfill some need of, how much weight's on the bar. That's a hard place to get for some people, especially me. I'm a pretty pig-headed, bull-headed individual, and there was a time at which all I cared about was squatting heavy weights. First time I went to a seminar, I think I was up to like 405 for some sets of 5, and coaches were yelling at me to do this, and I was high bar squatting, and my pig-headedness, I just wanted to move more weight on the bar. Only to eventually realize that what they were telling me was exactly what I needed to work on. So I think training for strength for me is largely about keeping myself together. I personally don't give a shit about how strong I am anymore. I'm at a point where I'm decently strong. I'm good for what I do. I have other training goals that I consider. So my training is largely to keep myself going. And I play hockey very competitively 2 to 4 days a week, and it's a big passion of mine. I'm now coaching my boys in it and hundreds of lifters in my local hockey association, and I utilize training largely to keep myself going and to stay strong. My most significant back issues, that I kind of had a similar story to most. I would go to get looked at and be told to take a narcotic and rest, basically, to lay off what I was doing. I did some PT, and I never had much success, so I came across getting strong and put a lot of my eggs in the getting strong basket. Had some aggravations along the way where I'd re-injure myself or push too fast, too soon. Largely, I think once you're decently strong, it's a matter of keeping the ego in check and following a good, consistent training program. When you re-aggravate yourself, you'll know right away what was the thing that caused it. When I said about controlling variables, it's one of the beautiful things I think about this program is it's just a few basic lifts, and if something's aggravated, you can kind of look down the list and say, oh, it's this. One of my biggest things now is my overhead press. I had a goal for a long time of standing overhead pressing 300 pounds. And I don't give a shit about that anymore because of the amount of stress it puts on my back. And if I do anything that isn't a very strict press, I notice that my back starts getting aggravated. And if I was a competitive lifter and that was my goal, I would continue to do that, but no interest in that. So I watch my press. I end up doing a lot of seated press, or I do a very strict press. I'm not a big fan of doing 2.0 or Olympic press or a lot of aggravation because my back will just go into fits. Maybe a lifter that's doing 150 can get away with it, but you start getting to 250, 300 pounds, it's a little different story. But the more you control your variables when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, the more you can set yourself up as a risk management. And I like just the basic lifts, squat, press, deadlift. I find that when I get too far away, when I start monkeying around with some CrossFit type stuff or plyometric, jumping around, silly stuff, or sometimes your ego will get going a little bit, you get decently strong and you're feeling good, you might start pushing the boundaries a little bit, and it's usually when you go a bit far or your back starts aggravating again. So I think keeping on a good regular program where you keep it strong and keep it simple, don't do a lot of foolishness, and you're good. Hockey's kind of my foolishness, and I'm dealing with one thing after another, and sprained wrists, partially separated shoulder, everything's beat up, but I do it out of the passion and the love for it, and I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I go do it. And that's something that there's lifters that are that way. There's lifters that will tell you stories. You've listened to some real serious power lifters that have trained for years that get that excitement or adrenaline off training, that whatever. It's beyond just simply health and risk management. It's I don't give a shit. This is what I do. But to me, training is about keeping myself strong so that I can still do the things that I want to do and that I love doing, and that's how I manage stuff. Last big blowout I had, Sully and I were down in Westminster, and I was warming up. It was a seminar. It was a stressful, long weekend, and I was rushing myself through warm-ups, and I took my
You
first...
were, man. You were.
Yep.
You fucked up.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. I took 365 out for my last warm-up single, and I just dropped down, and I felt a common feeling that I felt was a little... and racked the bar and went down, and Sully had to stop every hour or so on the way back, and I'd get up slowly, and I'd
Makes
walk.
for an excellent travel companion.
I had a doctor with me, so that was nice. And he put me on a good protocol of Tylenol and Advil, basically, or something like that, ibuprofen and acetaminophen or whatever was it.
Yep. It
And,
was acetaminophen and ibuprofen.
And he's like, "You'll be fine. Warp drive's just out for a little while." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm paralyzed. I'm not going to walk again." Warp drive's out for a little while, and I got back into the gym. I did my air squats. I moved around. I kept moving. And about a week later, I was squatting some decent weight again, and everything was back to normal. Warp drive was just temporarily out. I think the nice thing about that is that I was strong, and I was able to recover better. An episode like that before, I probably would have been bedridden for weeks. But yeah, I'm kind of rambling now, but the moral of the story is get
it's
a
actually
baseline of strength.
Yeah, it's actually important.
Yeah. I think the technique and the form is the most important factor, and that's where a lot of people get caught up in. And you saw this today. None of you guys mastered anything yet. You got a ways to go. We all do. Sully would yell at me, I'd yell at him if we looked at each other's squats, and the same is true. It's kind of, there's no such thing as complete mastery, but over time with experience under the bar, you learn some invaluable lessons and you get better. Sorry. Keep the trunk tight when you're underneath the bar and build a very, very strong set of abdominal muscles and lower back muscles. That's the key to keeping your back in decent health. And I think Sully's said it many times in these camps before. What is it? You can have a strong back that hurts or a weak back that hurts. At some level it's going to hurt, and then once it starts hurting, you got to just troubleshoot and try to do the things you can to control it. Sleeping in odd beds is one of the bad things for me, and I wish I could just bring a bed with me to each hotel I stayed at. I have to have my bed nice and secure. Other than that, it's just training, managing the training stress. Anything you want to jump in on that?
Old and beat up and in pain and strong, or old and beat up and in pain and weak? We can't change the old part. We can't change the beat up part. We can't change up the aches and pain. We can't change the back pain part, right? So when you hear people say the human body is a perfect machine, what bullshit, right? The human body is not a perfect machine, right? You have a back, you have a spinal column. The basic engineering of your spinal column was designed for quadrupeds, but you're not a quadruped, right? So the way that your spine is designed, it was never meant to handle lots of axial forces, right? It was not meant to handle forces like this. It was meant to handle forces and distribute them across a length while you walked around on all fours, right? But a couple of million years ago, you decided you were going to stand up and you were going to be a biped. And your spine has not quite caught up with that change in behavior, right? So the engineering hasn't quite caught up with that change in function, which is, maybe why somebody will ask me a question about like sumo squats or hex bar deadlifts, and I'll have something to say about that, right? So everyone has back pain. And it's all over the internet now. Fortunately, the word is getting out there. Like I was just watching an Alan Thrall video not too long ago. Tweaked his back, right? And just like, I'm not broken. I'm not broken. I just hurt my back, right? So you need to go from this like, oh my God, I hurt my back. It's a catastrophe, right? To it's like, yeah, I hurt my back. That's annoying. It's gonna put a bump in my training. It's gonna hold me back a little bit. But I hurt my back. So it's really no different from like you strain a biceps, or right now like this is bugging me, right? Or you sprain an ankle or something like that. But when it's your back, and I think part of the problem is, first of all, it's been magnified in the public consciousness, and secondly, it's your back, it's your warp drive, so it's involved in everything that you do. So every time you do something, every time you shift into your chair, every time you get up out of the car seat, right, it hurts. I get that, but you're not broken. So, you're going to go, you're going to train, you're going to do air squats if you have to do air squats. Maybe there's that video by Bo Bryant, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a crude video that they made on the spot, but it was like brilliant, out of Westminster Strength and Conditioning. We had this guy who just tweaked his back doing squats. And so Bo's talking to him, it's like, so what you're going to do is you're not broken, you're not going to freak out, you're not going to melt down, you're just going to push the damn prowler, right? You're going to push the prowler, and you're going to come back for your next session, you're going to do what you can do, and your back's going to get better, because that's the natural history of back pain. Okay? And then the other thing you need to understand is you have the great misfortune of knowing exactly what your pathology is, right? Did you get an MRI?
No MRI.
All right, well, that's actually kind of good, right? So somebody told you that you have a disc, right? Yeah, disc issue. Okay, so without an MRI, right, that guy was talking right out of his asshole, right? It was just something that he said to you so that you would have some sort of structural diagnosis to hang on, so he could get you the fuck out of his office and move on to the next paying patient, right? That was all that was. Without an MRI, he's just talking straight out of his butthole. He doesn't know whether it's your disc or your facet joint or paraspinal muscle or ligament. He doesn't know what it is, right? Don't fixate on the pathology, because one thing that we know is the pathology, even if we do have an MRI, the pathology is uncoupled from the functional outcome. So take 100 guys off the street, get an MRI on every one of them. None of them have back pain. Get an MRI on every one of them. They all have disc disease, right? They're all going to have some sort of pathology, and the radiologist is a doctor who has nothing to do with actual human beings. He sits in a dark room and he's going to look at that and he's going, oh, that poor bastard, right? And he doesn't know. That patient's painless. That patient's completely asymptomatic, right? And then you get 100 guys with back pain and put them in there, and you might find some disc disease that doesn't correlate with their back pain at all. So there's a very, very loose, very, very poor correlation between actual structural pathology that you can see, assuming you even get an MRI, and what your actual functional outcome is going to be. Now, if there's a poor correlation between MRI pathology and functional outcome, imagine what the correlation is between doctor sitting in his office pulling some shit out of his ass to throw in your face and your actual functional outcome, right? And it's Zippo. There is no correlation between that. Somebody was guessing, right? Telling you something, sounded good. Oh, you've clearly got a herniated lumbar disc, right? He didn't know, right? The only thing that's important to know is that you're not broken. You got under the bar. You squatted pretty heavy today. You did pretty good. You were uncomfortable, but your form looked good. In fact, your form even improved. That's really all you need to know about your back pain when you leave the room today, right? You're not broken. It's going to come back. The natural history of back pain is you get it, it gets better, it comes back. And then you die, right? So a strong back is going to hurt less than a weak back. A strong back is going to rehab faster than a weak back, right? Take your NSAIDs, take your Tylenol. do something, whatever you do, don't stop moving, don't go immobile, go to the gym, work the movement patterns, do what you can do, train around the injury, and you'll get better and you'll get stronger.